Hi everyone, Don Giannatti, lighting-essentials.com and project52prosystems.com. I really enjoy doing these videos, and more and more people are subscribing, and that just makes me charged to do more. So today I'd like to talk about 5 ways that I use in photography. I've used these for years to help me create that shot. Commercial photography, as you know, is pretty competitive, and you've got to be able to find every way you can to make a good shot. We're not going to talk about the things that everybody else talks about, because I think, you know, we've heard them 1,000 times. You know, rule of thirds. I don't believe in the rule of thirds. Sorry, I don't. I think it's bull. But we hear about that. We hear about get better glass and get better cameras and full frame versus crop frame and all that. I don't care about any of that stuff. If it helps make you make a better photograph, then go for it. That's fine. Whatever works for you is great. What I want to talk about is 5 little known things that I've used over the years, especially I think since digital, because digital has allowed us to skip by a lot of it. And one of those things that allows us to skip by is exposure. I have seen badly exposed images fixed in Lightroom, Photoshop, Affinity, and those things. You can do a lot with a digital capture now. And so I think sometimes photographers get a little sloppy on it. Don't be sloppy on exposure. Check it and then double check it. If you're using an ambient meter, one of the things that'll screw you up with an ambient meter is being quick with it and not catching a little glint of sunlight or reflection hitting the side of that meter, that little dome, because that little glint of light on the dome will definitely cause your exposure to be off a little bit. You got to make sure that dome is getting the same amount of light as your subject. I use the domed ambient meter reading for almost everything. Back in the day, I used the spot meter reflected light metering a lot because I was dealing with exposure and chemistry. We don't have chemistry anymore, so the idea of overexposing and underdeveloping doesn't hold water anymore. There's no underdeveloping, it's just a digital file. So I try to nail the exposure. When I am using a reflected meter, that's the one in the camera, I make absolutely sure that the item I am focusing on for exposure, putting that little dot in my camera for exposure, is what I want to be middle gray. I'm very careful about it. I can use a gray card. Sometimes gray card isn't appropriate for the shot, so I'll use something else, and I will place that exposure where I want it to be. In other words, if there's something with a little bit of latitude in the shot that I can say, well, I'm going to make this shot a little bit darker, I can use a lighter gray to move down to middle gray by choosing where I put it. If you're not sure what placing exposure means, I have a class at UDEMY, and before you turn me off, it's free. I'm not trying to sell you anything, okay? It's a free class on using a light meter. And go to the chapter on placing exposure. If you're not sure what I mean, I think you'll get it after you watch that video there. There's a couple videos, I think, there on placing exposure. So be very sure that you placed and put your exposure perfectly for what you want that image to be. Yeah, you can tweak it a little bit when you get it in Lightroom and Photoshop and everything. But if we're really good at our craft, shouldn't we be really good at our craft? Just saying. Okay. Number 2, when you're framing your image, check the corners. If something's going to go wrong in your picture, it's probably going to be in the corner. Up there, down here, over here, up there. The corners are where things can fall apart. So be really careful as you're going through your composition to notice those corners. And ask yourself, is that what I want in the frame? I used to teach photography a long time ago at a school, and one of the worst answers you could ever give me as an instructor was, "Oh, I didn't see it there." Okay, what the hell else were you doing? I mean, really, isn't that the only job you have, is to look through that tiny frame and make sure that everything in that frame is what you want it to be there? You didn't see it there. So what were you doing? Mowing the lawn? Reading? I don't know. Does it make sense? Everything in that frame is because you wanted it there, or accepted it being there, or compromised that it was there. But it's yours because you put it there. You allowed it to stay. So be very, very careful what's in the corners of your images. Another trick I learned, and this is from shooting large format cameras, turn your camera upside down. And look at that composition upside down. You know, a view camera, the ones with the big cloth that you put over your head, a view camera is not only a very simple instrument. It has no mirrors or anything in it. It's a very simple instrument to use, but it shows the image exactly as the image comes from the lens, which is upside down and backwards. So not only is it flipped, it's also upside down. This can be real challenge when you first get under the cloth. You throw the cloth over, you look at it, and the picture's upside down and left to right switched. So if you go this way with the camera, the image moves this way across your film. If you go this way with the camera, the image moves this way across not the film, but the plate you're looking at, the ground glass. So it takes a little bit of doing. However, it's not rocket science. And after shooting under the dark cloth for a day, 2 days max, you're going to get it. Your brain starts to see upside down and backwards. If you're shooting a Hasselblad, a Mamiya, anything with a viewfinder that goes straight down, it only corrects for up, putting the top at the top. It doesn't correct for the sides. So if you go this way with the Hasselblad, the image in there goes this way, okay? Because it's backwards. So it takes a little bit of training. But one thing it does is it helps you with composition tremendously, because it forces you to look through the frame and see the composition. So when you turn your camera upside down, like that, you're going to look through that frame, or maybe take a shot and turn it upside down and look at the ground glass if that's what you want. I don't care. All of a sudden, that picture you took isn't quite the same way. So now you have to really analyze that photograph, and you'll see flaws in it that upside down that you didn't see when it was right side up. It's kind of like copy editing your own work. I'm a really good copy editor for anything I didn't write. If I wrote it, oh hell, it's a mess. But if someone else wrote it, I can catch typos, syntax. I'm good at it. But it has to be from somewhere else, something I am not familiar with. And when you flip that camera upside down, you're not familiar with that image anymore. And you'll start to go through it very, very carefully. Number 4 is to turn your preview to black and white. Now, if you're shooting RAW, it's not going to make any difference to the image whatsoever. You're going to have a black and white preview, but you're going to have a color RAW file. You're going to be able to do anything with the RAW file that you want to do in your software. But the preview goes black and white. You know what you'll see in black and white? You'll see contrast. You'll see lights and darks. You'll see, interestingly enough, luminances that come really close to each other. A pink shirt and yellow shorts look really great. In black and white, they have the same color gray because the luminance is the same. Now, if you're shooting pink and yellow, great. But if you're shooting for a black and white shot, you might want to see that. If you're shooting color, you might want to check where your vibrances lie. Where is this luminance happening on here? Even though it's going to be a color shot, knowing what it looks like in black and white can make a lot of difference on where you place something. You're going to see shadows, line, and graphics more in black and white because it's not real than you will in the color photograph. The color photograph is what you see in front of you. The black and white photograph is a representation of what you see in front of you. And you'll see things in the black and white you probably didn't see in the color. It's a technique I use a lot. I'm still shooting color, but I've got black and white up on my preview. And if I'm not shooting the whole job that way, that's fine. But I still will do test shots initially, test shots in black and white preview so I can see shadow, line, graphic, composition, upside down, everything on it. Now, obviously, this isn't something that you would do for fashion where the model's moving. You can't turn your camera upside down, all that kind of stuff. But if it's a portrait with a person in a specific spot, you can turn your camera upside down. You can turn it to black and white. You can do everything that you need to do on those test shots. Then, when you know everything's good, you're ready to go, make the shot. The fifth thing is you can sketch with your camera. You can quickly make photographs of the scene, the point of view, the angle. You can move up and down. You can stand up over here. You can get down really low. You can shoot, 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 shoot. I generally just put the camera on auto for that. I don't care about exposure. I don't care about anything. And auto on most modern cameras is pretty darn good anyway. So you're still going to get a good representational shot. But you're going to see how the background and the foreground relate to each other. Because a foot to the left can change everything. A foot to the right could change everything. 5 feet up could suck. 3 feet from the ground may be great. If you get up high and you shoot down, all of a sudden the horizon goes way up to the top. Or it disappears because you're shooting this way. It can be very, very interesting to check all of this out quickly. We're talking a minute, minute and a half. It's digital. You can go back through them. Okay, all right, I really like what this is happening here. All right, let's experiment with that. Or let's take this angle that we just found by our sketching and flesh it out. Let's go a little bit farther with it, see if that works. Too many times, I think photographers get to somewhere and they stop and they put their camera up and by God, that's it. That's the shot. Oh, if it were only that easy. Remember, you want to show me something that I haven't seen before. You want to show me something that I have seen before in a way I may not have seen it. You want to put something very mundane in front of me that's very exciting. And to do that, you've got to experiment with your point of view, your angle. You may even change lenses. Well, this looks really good with an 85. What would it look like with a 135? This looks great at an 85. Let's try a 50. Looks great at a 50. Let's try a 35. Oh, it's even better with a 35 because we've done this and that. How do you know that if you don't try it? I mean, you can see it in your head. You should be able to see your lenses in your head, but get it down on that two-dimensional thing. Sketch. Sketch with your camera. Make something interesting by doing it in a way an artist might do it. So that's 5 different ways. I don't think they're highly discussed, but I think they're really important ways that will make a big difference in your photography. I suggest you try it. And listen, if you like these videos, why don't you subscribe? YouTube is free. They don't charge you to subscribe yet. I don't know. And you get a little notification when I put these videos up, sometimes 2 a week, sometimes 3 a week. I'd like to get on some kind of schedule, but I'm doing other things too, just like you. Why don't you subscribe? Leave a message down below if you try any of these techniques and they work for you, or you're surprised that they work for you, or even if you tried it and they go, I just don't see it. That's okay. Not everybody is going to like everything that anyone else tells them to do. I don't ever want to be dogmatic with you guys, ever. So if it doesn't work for you, no problem. You probably have something else that does work for you. Do that. Do that. Share it with us if you'd like, so everybody can learn from it. I'm really glad to have you here. I'm glad you took the time to watch the video, and I hope one of these techniques or all of these techniques helps you make a better video. The link to the light meter class is down below. It is free at Udemy, and I think it has about 11,000 students. It's old. The video is not all that great, but the information is rock solid. So enjoy, and see you next time.